Hello, guys. Oh, wow, this is loud. I'm actually loud, so maybe I should just keep this a bit further. Thank you for joining. Such huge numbers, I'm impressed. I'm honestly impressed, I'm not ironic. I know there is a little attendance at these things, but I think it's nice because it's a lot of people that want to build stuff, so welcome and thank you for coming and listening. We put already the dashboard up, so as the title says, we're going to talk about live data on-chain coming from Gnosis Pay. And I'm curious, does any of you use this Gnosis Pay? You guys? Yeah? Nice. Have you had any recent activity in the last 30 days? Will we? No. Okay. Then you're not one of these guys here. But yeah, before I start, to give you like a very brief context, we at Dena do data engineering for crypto-native teams. We have worked mostly with MakerDAO or Sky, as you might know it, and we have covered a bunch of things from governance operations to payments, treasury operations, whatnot. And we realized there was no one single source of truth for data. Obviously, like we had a bunch of queries on Dune and so on, but we couldn't look at everything. And I always found this interesting, like we are living in this space where everything is verifiable, yet we cannot all look at the same source of truth and comment on it. So we started building this kind of dashboards. I think they have two types of usage. One is for transparency for the end users, but I believe these should be a must-have for any single DeFi protocol out there as well. Yeah, because it can help you a lot with alerting whenever something weird happens. You can catch those quite easily. So yeah, we started from the fact that obviously Gnosis Pay writes every single card spend, safe top-up, IBAN transaction on a public chain. So there's a million of transactions. They're all permanent and verifiable, yet there is no real-time watchable from outside their team. So yeah, this is what we are gonna cover today. Obviously, the proof is on-chain. It's effectively invisible to anyone else. And the fix, in our opinion, is not another internal analytics tool. It's a public proof of work, a ticker where you can watch all the transactions as they land, rolling counters, and the point is to make all of these visible for the users. We don't have one feed, but two feeds in here, and obviously we can build further, but we wanted to differentiate between the first part that's mainly live spends and the funding side. And the reason for this is because we are looking at two different user types here. And while we are not going to do a lot of live demoing today, we just want to walk you through a bit, like what was our thinking around it, how did we, where did we start, right? Like where did we start to have all this information, as well as touch a bit upon what kind of friction points or pain points we discovered across the way. And as my colleague Pixel did most of this work, I think it's more than fair to let him talk about it. So I'll hand over to him to walk you through the dashboard.
Yeah, thanks, Saba. So first of all, I would like to start with what was the starting point for this dashboard. So every one of us sits on X and is reading a lot of tweets about card processors and so on. And there was that strange tweet where someone wrote that one of the biggest card payments had huge volumes, and he knew no one who used that card provider. So we thought that it would be interesting to see this like in real time. And this is like, this graph shows you like what were the card payments in the last hour. And we see that we had like 367 transactions with a total amount of almost 60K, and there were 305 different users. All this data is read on-chain based on spend events emitted by Gnosis Pay spend model. Also, so this is the first row here. And below we have like the volume of the user top-ups of their cards, which are also is open data from the Gnosis chain, which were based on the transfer event that entered user Gnosis account. And we have here like some table with latest funding. We see that these events are not quite frequent. We have like 10 in the last day. And yeah, here is the current live data from the last hour. So we can see on each of these rows like the currency breakdown for all users in the last hour. So to make a small summary of the first part, so we have two surfaces that we are looking into this feed. First one is lifespans, and the second one is funding, meaning where the money came from. And these sources are classified by IBANs, or they are labeled by cow swap, top-ups, or bridging from other chains or the same chain. Like we can, I think I can show you here. Is more. We see that the most of the top-ups are like IBANs. But yeah, if we dig a bit in the history, we will see that, for example, this transaction was a top-up using Li-Fi bridge. Okay, let's wait for it to load. Yes. Yeah. So this is all the event history. So this wasn't a cross-chain swap, but it was a Li-Fi bridge from the Gnosis chain. Okay. And yes. Okay. And now I will walk you through the architecture of this small dashboard. So we have, first of all, Gnosis chain, where all the events are published. And for the live feed that you see on the screen, we are collecting the spend events. And we are using Envy Hyper Client in order to make the sync into our database. We use for this specific demo, we used a Supabase Postgres database. We have our own backend in Next.js, and we use it in order to aggregate the data which we are displaying in this frontend. And of course, in order to display data, you are interested mostly on the data on the top of the chain. So the data, like for 2 days ago, is unchanged. For this specific exercise, we didn't took into considerations reworks, chain reworks, because each of those spend events, even if it gets in other block, it still remain on chain, and it is subtracted from the Gnosis Pay user account. And yeah, so as I said before, the main part of our dashboard is the indexer, which looks like some big part of infrastructure, but it's not, because the hyperclient from the Envy covers almost all our use cases. And we use a cursor that is picking the latest block number from our database table. And we just sync the data that we are using for displaying live changes only after that specific block number. And Yeah, maybe I should explain a bit about the spend event anatomy. So usually the data that you can find on chain contains 4 fields on the event. One of those is the asset, which can be the equivalent of euro or USDC or USD or GBP. And if you look at the dashboard, you see that most of the transfers are like euro. This blue tiles. These green ones are USDE, and this yellow is the GBP expense. So GBP, for example, is quite rarely used or was used in the last hour. And one more thing is that we are filtering the data from the blockchain based on event signature and not the emitter, because from the last security incident with the delay model, we woke up in the morning and we saw that we see no transactions on the chain, and we understand that okay, we all know what happened, but at the same time the contract that emitted these transactions was changed, and we just switched it. And yeah, this is how the data gets in our system and is displayed on the surface. And yeah, so some facts about the events. So on Gnosis, each block is produced once in 5 seconds. So the speed of writing the blocks is not so high. So you don't have to maintain like a highly performant infrastructure. So for our example, we use the free tier of NVO hyperclient, a small micro Supabase instance, and a Vercel serverless architecture. So it's doing it work. Let's say on a very cheap cost. And yeah, maybe, yeah, I said about spend architecture. We can look into the logs here. So yes, this is the spend event. You see this is the asset address. This is the account that spent the amount you saw before. And this is the vault. One important thing about the on-chain traceability is the fact that you see the user that did the spend, but you don't see where those money actually, you don't see the merchant exactly. And yeah, because all these spend get into some centralized Gnosis vault, which is forwarded further. Okay, so let's go back to the, yeah, and we already saw the recent fundings. So these are top-ups of the user accounts. How we are collecting or how we are monitoring this type of events. So we are looking mostly for the transfer events on the chain, which has as a recipient one of the Gnosis safe addresses. Currently, we are monitoring all the transfers and just filter them by destination, but you can do this using hyperclient in a more efficient way, just by filtering directly and not looking into each transfer. But at the current volumes and our architecture work just fine. And relating to the labels of the top-ups, so these are not some labels that you can get from the event. You have to manually take each event and based on the event long, you can classify them. So you see that here we have mostly IBANs, but there are also some events that are classified as others. So this could be just a transfer between two Gnosis users. And yes. And for these things, so that the recent funding are like quite rare events. And in this case, we used just some cursor that is just expanding by interval. Like in this case, we have 24 hours, 7 days, or 30 days. Which, and you see the frequency of the funds is like 1 in a few hours. So in this case, you don't have to make like very frequent polls in order to read 1 event per hour, which is not the case for the live spending, because these events are like can be like a few events in a single minute. So we poll once in 15 seconds, but this can be done even more frequently, but I don't think it makes sense to make it more frequently than 5 seconds when a single Gnosis block is produced. And as I've mentioned before, we are currently looking for the funding only on the accounts that already did some spendings, because we have the spend account in the spend event, and you just filter the transfer events with the destination of that account. Of course, we can do this even for the users that didn't made a spend anytime based on the account created event emitted by the delay module. And yeah, this will expand the funding events a bit more, but not by a big margin. And yeah, I think this was most of the architecture that we described. So yeah, on the front-end side, we use like React with recharts for these charts, but in the rest it's basic React components. And yeah, so I can try to do a quick summary on the architecture. So the indexer is just a watermark loop. So you always pick the new events from the top. You don't have to reiterate over the events from the last hour each time you do this update. And the labeling for the top-ups is something manual that we are just taking individual events and just look up for the path from where those funds came from. Yeah, I think that's all on the architecture side. I can show you so all this code which is extracted from our production code, you can find in a repo, which I guess is in our presentation. Maybe I can switch to it, but it's on the Gnosis Pay Monitor GitHub account. Yeah, so as a final thought, so the proof of this activity is always on chain, but it's not always displayed. So in order to see this so the transparency is there, you just have to build a tool to see it. Yeah, so if there are any questions. Yes, please.
How do you monitor the refund? So let's say if I pass
Yes.
And then the transaction is reverted on the merchant.
Yeah.
Can you track that event?
Yeah, you have some events on the vault that each spend event is sent to. So you'll see that most of the events are like out or are in that vault, but you'll see like some outflow events that can be refunds, can be cashbacks. Yeah, we didn't include this in this specific dashboard, but we looked into it. Well, any other question?
I don't have questions.
Okay.
Thank you, guys. Maybe leave the GitHub repo.
Yeah, the GitHub repo is on the screen. Also, I think I've forgot to mention about the pricing. So we saw that all the pricing we displayed in USD. We don't store that price anywhere. It's just live feed data from CoinGecko, and we just transform that on the fly. Yes. Yes, let me switch back here.
How do you differentiate, like, how do you tag IBAN and not just a simple transfer? I see some transactions.
Yeah,
minting the token. Is that the?
yeah. It's just Monero minting one of those free tokens.
That bit of labeling is something that we do, right? So if it's Monerium, we know it's IBANs. If it's cow, like the labeling is a categorization internally that we put on top of the data.
I can show you here. So this is like a more static dashboard, but you can see here are like some types of funding. We see here that we have like DEX fundings or Monero, which are like those IBANs that you saw before. We see cross bridges. There was at some point a big activity on swapping funds on CowSwap, and yeah, there are also a lot of different fundings, the types of fundings that we just didn't label before, and yeah, you can see here like this is the entire history. There are like 3.3 million of spend events overall in the history of Gnosis Pay. They have different, so almost 38K users, but you can see this spike in new users when they switched the user addresses after the recent incident. So, yeah. Also, we have another small dashboard which just monitors the Gnosis treasury holdings. So you can see these holdings and also have a separate tab with the allocations in different protocols like Spark or Balancer. But this is static data. We don't monitor it real time, and I don't think it really makes sense to have it like 1 minute breakdown for this. Yes, any other question? Yeah, thank you.